So we're going to be speaking with Damien Patton and Pedro Alves. And so I'll just tell you a little bit about Damien. He's the founder and CEO of Banjo. And for those of you who don't know, Banjo collects social signals organized by time, location, and content. And they index and curate news. And before Banjo, Damien served in Desert Storm, was the chief mechanic of a top NASCAR team, which we'll ask him about. And even dusted for prints and collected DNA as a crime investigator. And so he did so also while working as a CEO for a tech company, which we'll also ask him about. And then Damien speaks regularly at conferences on location-based technology, privacy, and entrepreneurship and agile development. So please welcome Damien Patton.
Thank you.
We're also excited to have Pedro Alves here. Pedro is the chief data scientist at Banjo, where he leads their efforts in breaking new frontiers and uses of social network data. At Banjo, his efforts are geared toward detecting and interpreting everything that is happening in the world in real time, from major concerts and sporting events to major and minor news, from early detection and sentiment analysis to predicting their popularity. So thanks, Pedro, as well, for coming today.
Great. So Damien, let's first talk about you.
Sure.
And how would you summarize your story from your days in Desert Storm and as a chief mechanic in NASCAR to today? What made you go from one place to another?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I like a variety of things. I have a variety of interests, and I always like to be what I call best in class, so whatever it is that I'm doing, I like to excel at those things. So if I want to be in motorsports, you might as well be at the top of motorsports. If you want to be in the military, same thing. I had a fascination with solving puzzles and crimes and stuff like this, and so I went and joined the police force and did that, so I could understand what solving hard problems are all about from a different perspective of problems, not engineering and certainly not business. And you know, all that is applicable to what we do at Banjo today. I think the team, for everyone who comes and visits us at Banjo, always says your team is really unique from other startups or other engineering teams. And I think it's the experience in like NASCAR about how fast you have to move to win, and how literally milliseconds count in competition. And there literally is just, you know, hundreds of seconds between you first place and not first place, and that's millions of dollars. And so we treat Banjo in the same way in engineering, in that we move at that speed with that kind of accuracy as well. And then from the military days, if you were to come into our Vegas Live Media Ops Center, which I invite all of you guys to come visit us, I promise you, and this is not an overstatement, you will come in there and it'll blow your mind at what we're able to see and watch in real time, and some of the major breaking news stories that you guys see every day, certainly every week, every month, and know that that's coming first from us and then going out to the major media networks. So, but if you go into that place, it very much will remind you about the Combat Information Center that I worked on board an aircraft carrier during the war. It's very dark, lit with blue lights, large screens everywhere, and you're literally giving out instruction and direction as if you were controlling a bunch of fighter aircraft. So it has a lot of similarities from my past are now baked into Banjo's DNA.
So let's talk about Banjo and breaking news and journalism.
Sure.
So we've all heard about the Fox 25 case and the Boston Marathon bombings. Are there other examples of how news media has used Banjo to tell a story that you'd like to tell us about? Yeah,
I mean, there's literally thousands now. I mean, we power ABC, Fox, NBC, CBS, ESPN, you know, breaking news from around the world. So, I mean, some of the bigger stories I can give you, but I can give you stories right up until 5 minutes ago. I was watching Fox break some news, and you know, Banjo was the ones to do that. So, you know, the Ukraine, in Ukraine, several months ago, you guys remember the downing of the Malaysian Airlines, and that was done by some Russian rebels in eastern Ukraine. Banjo's technology recognized that. It was a social post was shared by, I believe, a Ukrainian farmer on a social network called VKontakte, VK for short, very popular Russian social network. Our photo recognition technology of being able to detect fire and smoke, nothing to do with words, nothing to do with what the kind of content in the post was. It gave us the ability to tell that something dramatic had happened there. And then the other posts that we got from other foreign social networks, not US-based social networks, like you think Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, it told the story in real time to us what was going on there, and we were the first ones in the world, literally, to know that that Malaysian Airlines plane had been shot down, and we shared that with Yahoo News. They put it up on their front page of Yahoo News, and then of course it went to NBC and Fox. But just to give you an idea, we beat CNN by 1 hour and 35 minutes, that story. Like, that's a lifetime in news for that big of a story. The first company to have it outside of us was Interfax, which is like the Russian AP, and they had it, I think, 9 minutes after we did. So, I mean, and they had it as I think a Ukrainian cargo, military cargo transport plane was shot down. Of course, we knew that not to be the case. So stories like that every single day. I mean, of course, not plane crashes, although yesterday we were the ones who broke the plane crash in the Taipei River. You know, we have an algorithm that literally can just detect crash. Not from words, literally from an image. So when a helicopter crashed in Las Vegas a couple weeks ago, just the image of that helicopter crashed into the ground, our algorithm told us that was a helicopter crash. It had happened, and we alerted NBC, and they were the first ones to break the story on the scene. So it literally happens like so many times a day now that we just lose count. If you look up on our live board in our office, you'll see CBS and ABC or Fox or NBC logos all the time in the different stations that are live on air with a breaking story about Banjo. And it's not always breaking news as well. Investigative journalism, it's sports, it's weather. I mean, the amount of media that was powered by Banjo during the Super Bowl was unbelievable. I mean, Banjo had a big part in the Super Bowl. I was actually at the Super Bowl working with some of our customers for that event.
So I want to go more into how Banjo works, but first, do you have any tips for journalists on how to use Banjo from what you've seen about other big media groups using it, or maybe from inside your organization?
Yeah, so you have to think a little bit differently. I mean, the biggest thing for Banjo from a media perspective that I've seen is the breaking news is great. I mean, knowing before anybody else is, I mean, I enjoy that every day, just having information before anybody else. I call it our crystal ball. But in the reality, from a media perspective, what I see used as a daily use, and for multiple cases, is being able to contact sources at the scene. Because if you use Twitter or you use Instagram or you use other social networks today, you do not know that those people are at the scene, and you do not know how to go and get to that scene immediately. You're looking for hashtags, you're looking for keywords, and you're sifting through just a tremendous amount of noise. With Banjo, you're targeted on that exact street corner, that exact place, anywhere in the world, at any time, and you find sources at the scene, whatever social network they're on, whether it's a Twitter or Instagram or foreign social network like Weibo in China or VKontakte in Eastern Europe. And you're able to literally reach out and talk to those people instantaneously through the social network. We provide that context. So, you know, that's what probably happens more than any other use case in Banjo, is before the news trucks are scrambled, before the helicopters are flown, you know, just to check out and see if there is a story there. Reporters, the assignment desks at news stations are using Banjo to first vet out, you know, what's really going on at the scene, and to see if they can get eyewitnesses. And many times you'll see they'll request the eyewitness to shoot some video, and then they'll use that video for a breaking story before they can get a news truck there.
So you at this point, would you like to ask anything?
Sure. Well, I would say it sounds like you really like winning. So I would say, what have been, you know, the most satisfying things about starting Banjo, and maybe what's been the biggest struggle?
I think I'll start off. The biggest struggle is that no one's ever done what we're doing before, and so, you know, try not to be cliche about it, but trying to. Every day we're breaking new barriers. There's no books we can read. There's no PhD papers we can read about how some of these things have been done. Like, we're inventing what a crystal ball should look like and how you pull in all these data signals and interpret them. And that's hard because there is no path. I mean, just the database structures that have to contain this data, and the real-time detection, and how you alert people, and how you get rid of false positives so you don't burn people out. I mean, all these things are very difficult. And And so that's probably the hardest part of Banjo today. Is just continually every day it's keeping the team motivated because we're forging new frontiers. Every once in a while you go to do that as a single project, but we do it literally every single day. And so keeping the team pumped up about that. It is about winning because it's about the biggest and the greatest achievements for Banjo have been watching the team get excited about their work making a huge difference. And that might be something from our consumer application that powers a lot of this, being selected as the best app of the year in iTunes, right, for Apple, or the Editor's Choice app for Android, or we were the first partner to be selected by Samsung we were the only partner to go on stage with them when they announced their watch for the first time. And so those are huge wins for our team because it validates their work. I mean, the partnerships that we've done in working with companies like Twitter or Google to help work on some of the things that they're doing, it validates the work and effort that our team has put in, also the direction we're going in, and it keeps them excited and motivated. And so, but I don't think anything's as big as seeing, you turn on the television on Super Bowl Sunday, or you literally see a breaking news story multiple times a day, and knowing that was brought by the engineers and the team at Banjo, including the events team, the media team down in Vegas, them being able to share that before anybody else. I mean, that's very exciting for them. So, I would say that's the biggest things at Banjo, the upsides and pluses at Banjo.
You guys also scored $16 million, I think, last year in a Series B.
Mm-hmm.
Are you finding that you have to go out and canvas hard for these? I mean, I know startups, especially around in Silicon Valley, are super competitive right now. So are you having to compete with others to get funding, or are you finding sort of these investors coming to you?
Yeah, I mean, we've been fortunate that the investors have all come to us for the most part. I mean, I'm sure there's an exception with some of the other investors. We may have been introduced to them, but I can tell you in the last major round, that investor used Banjo to find me actually at South by Southwest, and that's where they came in and invested in Banjo. Actually, was just an impromptu meeting by knowing that I was there at South by Southwest, so they used it to find me, and then conversations pursued over a very short amount of time, I think a couple of weeks, and boom. And that's been the case since the very beginning of Banjo. We've, we haven't had trouble raising money, but again, it's not about trouble or how hard it is competitive to raise money. It's I would say the difficult part is finding the right partners. So just because people come to you with a $16 million check doesn't mean you should take it. And certainly there's been a lot of money we haven't taken. In fact, there's a lot more money we haven't taken than have taken, because for us it's about partnering with the right people. It's just about hiring the right team at Banjo to power and to keep constantly motivated about what we're doing, and the end goal of event detection and what we want to build is, that's the tough part.
So you've talked about detection and photographs of certain things. How does Banjo, how does it work? How do you collect posts, and how do you decide what post someone sees on their screen, on their phone?
Yeah, so ultimately how it works is we have our own social graph, right? So social networks have their own social graph, and so we built a very popular consumer application, and because of this we've been able to amass a major social graph from all the major social networks, right, around the world. So like I've already mentioned, the ones in China or Eastern Europe or South America or the United States. And so what we've done is we've mapped out the entire world, like literally. I mean, we know every single square inch of the planet. So imagine satellite imagery and having it divided up, so that we know this room, we know this campus, we know everything going on in Palo Alto, we know everything going on in Bangladesh, downtown Paris, it doesn't matter. And so every single social post in the world that we can derive location from, for multiple different ways we derive location, gets inserted into that square foot of the planet in real time. The second that you take that photograph and it's publicly shared, and that's the big thing. Everything is only public. We don't look at any private content. We actually have a patent that protects the consumer from anything being shared that would otherwise be private. So it's only public data that would be shared to the masses. But all of that content, and we're talking billions and billions and billions of photos, videos a year, right? So it's totally critical mass at every square inch of the planet. I mean, the Banjo application is used, last time I looked at the map, we were used in 194 countries just that day. So I mean, that's critical mass. And so what happens is these posts go into these, you know, every square foot of the planet. And what we've been able to do is we know what normal looks like because we know the last several years of what every single square foot of the planet is. And think about that to yourself. You want to know what happens at that exact ride in Disneyland? We can tell you the history of that ride in Disneyland every single day for the last several years, right? For anything, inside of a shopping mall, inside a stadium, to just some random street corner. And so when something comes in that is not normal, we know what normal is, so it breaks that standard deviation of the norm, and we can detect that also through, like I said, our impressive photo recognition that Pedro and his team have built. Many photo recognition systems are done where they're, quite honestly, they're slow. Ours are just as fast as the rest of the company. So when a photo is shared or a video is shared on social networks, we instantaneously know what's going on in there. I can tell you if what kind of beverage someone's drinking in a photograph. I can tell you if there's a fire in that photograph. We can tell you if the streets are getting flooded because the snow's starting to melt. We can tell you if cars are crashed. You know, we can tell you just about, literally about, almost about anything that's happening inside of a photograph. We can tell, and same thing with video, in real time. And so if you can take those markers, if you will, those events that are happening in a photograph or a video, coupled with any conversation that's going on around there, and not just look at one social network like Twitter, right? Because there might not be critical mass on Twitter. Heck, there might not be any tweets. But if you can take everything from all the different social networks and combine that together into one stream, so it's like a bunch of tiny strands now into one giant rope, you get a very clear picture of what's happening on the planet, anywhere on the planet, in real time. And that's how Banjo works.
So Banjo essentially started, right, as a misconnection at Boston Logan.
That's right.
And now you're saying it's being used in 194 countries, right? In just one day. At what point did you realize, you know, this thing's going to be huge? This isn't just sort of like a location identity.
The day of the Boston bombing. I mean, you know, when that bomb went off, and of course we didn't know it was a bomb. We just knew it was an explosion. That's what the media was reporting. No one knew to the gravity of the situation. But using Banjo, we were able to zoom in and go to the exact location of that explosion. And then because we know and we see everything, we're able to rewind time. So we have, like, imagine TiVo for your TV. We can replay the entire social internet for any location in the world for the last hour, for the last day, for the last year. And so when we were able to do that, and we were able to get very powerful information before the media had it, and quite honestly before the authorities had it about that explosion, that's when I knew what we had really built to power location and misconnections. It wasn't about misconnections. It was really more about getting alerted when something important is nearby. And it could be a person, but it also could have been an event. It was all about just taking all of this unstructured data that's all around us every day. I don't want to have to belong to 50 different social networks that all my friends do, but I want the benefit of knowing when something important is nearby without having to join. And that's why from day one, Banjo's never had a sign up where you sign in with your email and password. It's always about you choosing your favorite social networks, and I think we have, you know, a dozen to choose from now. And so it was always about you being able to be included in everything without having to belong to everything.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question? I'm sure you've thought long and hard about the military implications of all this, given your background. Could you talk about the government's interest, not only the American government, but governments in general, their interest in getting you to not disclose certain events?
Sure. Well, first of all, that's not possible because I mean we take a hard line at Banjo. If you look at the patent we filed against for consumer privacy and how big of a consumer privacy advocate I've been in front of, whether it's been in front of the FCC, you know, or just speaking to other RIMPAC nations about it, you'll understand that it's baked into the DNA of our culture at Banjo about protecting user privacy. And you know, we as a company do not, none of our business relationships are with any government entities whatsoever right now. The only entity that we've entertained from a government has been around weather and helping them better predict weather models to enhance people's everyday lives. You know, where Banjo's focus in is helping out media, broadcast media, also large brands, financial markets, and other everyday verticals, everyday business units, whether it's healthcare, et cetera. This is a power source at the end of the day. This isn't a social media tool. We've created something that's extremely powerful that can power a lot of different things. But Banjo has chosen which vertical markets we're going to go after, and we've taken a pretty hard line on that, and that's where we sit on it.
You've had no request from the government to...
The people can request anything they want, but Banjo...
No request to mask your discovery of the vendor.
Yeah. I can tell you right now, if someone ever requested that, it would... I would probably laugh it off. I mean, literally. I mean, there's just no...
But Google's not laughing at all.
Huh?
Google's not laughing.
I can't speak for Google or anybody else. I can speak for Banjo, and I can tell you that we as a company, the access that we have, again, is to only public information. And so all of you in this room, everybody has access to that information. We've just figured out a way to build a layer to collect all this information and make sense out of it, where it's just noise to anybody else. It tells a story to us. But every single person in this room has the exact same access we do, including governments, of course, because it's public data. But as far as what we do with that information, we just literally work with the verticals that I've talked about and not anything outside of that. You're welcome.
So this goes to what you're saying about trying to make more sense of information out there. This is a question from Katie Straub, who's sitting right there. And she says, Banjo links formal editorial articles with your social media feed on a scene. Can you walk us through your reasoning for doing that?
Yeah, it's just to give it's from the consumer application. Remember, Banjo's powered from all the people around the world that have joined Banjo and use it in all these different countries, different languages, different social networks. And to give them value about coming back to the product, for them, they want to go and see a story, but they want to see it told by the people that are on the scene. But just from the people that are on the scene, sometimes it's just a photo or video and not a lot of them, so it's just breaking. And so if we can put some editorial on it, then it makes sense to the user, like it fills the rest of the story in. Whereas just editorial on itself from journalists, sometimes it only tells a story from one way, or it's not a complete story, and certainly it's not updated in real time like you get from the customer. So we find that a combination of the both has been what consumers react the best to. It's not just getting a story from a journalist or just getting a social post from some person on the scene. It's literally the combination of the two that tells the complete story for the user, and that's why we do it.
So here's a related question from Carolina Wilson. So as founder of Banjo, you've been coined as the founder of the live internet. What do you think may be some of the risks or setbacks associated with having curated news delivered to you?
So I don't really consider it curated news because, again, we're just detecting signals of things of change anywhere else. And so, and sometimes, in the story, what's news to myself is not news to you. And so we as a company really haven't focused on curating the news, if you will, for a particular person. It's more about, some of the bigger stories, of course, you'll see on the Banjo app. But I mean, let's just, the fact of it is, I think we only show about 100 events a day on Banjo. And what do we detect? 35 to 50,000 a day?
Yeah.
So, I mean, the app has nothing. It has less than 1% of what we have. And so the curated, if you will, so the journalists who use Banjo, they have access to way more than what's on the app every day. And I would say for us, there is no danger in curation because we're not curating that. It's just the raw, I would say the danger of it is you as a journalist have to decide what you're going to share and what you're not going to share. They both may be applicable, but you're making the decision of what you're going to share to your audience and what you're not. We don't make that decision. We give the full raw feed to any journalist, and they decide.
So for the people that just use the app, what comes to the top? How are the 100 things that?
So it's usually based on the popularity of the events, based on the interests or likes of the people that belong to Banjo. So for example, we have a lot of people in the United States who are interested in the Super Bowl. So Super Bowl boils up to the top because we have a lot of people that are interested. Whereas in like Brazil, for example, it may be a soccer game or a bull riding event, for example, that's popular sport there. That may come up. Or when the plane crash in Taipei happened yesterday, that's a global story that we just say is of interest to anybody. Even if, you know, not everybody in this room may not have been interested in reading that story. But if you look at the masses of people and what they would like to be educated about, even from just a snippet of information, they would like to know that that event happened. And so that's how we choose those events every day. A lot of it is based in algorithms, and then, you know, but some is based in, I'm a big New England Patriots fan, and so of course I'm going to make sure their stuff is on there for New England Patriots fans. So some of it's subjective, of course, but when it comes to the bigger stories of the news for what you guys are covering, it's usually based on the severity of a situation, the popularity of the situation, or the density of the people that are going to be looking on Banjo. If let's say we have a density of population in New York and something that's happening in New York, but we in California don't care about it, we would still show it in Banjo because we know people from New York are going to come in and they're going to see that information first.
And who are your main consumers? I mean, can you tell? I must differ a lot from.
I mean, there really is no. I mean, when you talk about 194 different countries, I mean, every day we see between 17 and 19 different major languages on Banjo. Certainly, there's more than that. Walks of life, anyone from teenagers all the way up to the elderly, and everywhere in between. This isn't like a social network where you can look at where Facebook's demographic or Snapchat's demographic. This really is a world demographic because there's something in here for everybody. There's the sports fan, the music fan, the person who's interested in just fashion shows, the person that's interested in news, and then what type of news, global news or regional news.
Okay. There's another. Do you want to?
Sorry.
Oh, do you want to go?
Well, I thought maybe we could hear from Pedro. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what you do at Banjo and what attracted you to the company.
I had just moved to Silicon Valley, and 3 months into my job, a recruiter contacted me, said there's this great opportunity. Tried to convince me that in 12 years as a recruiter, only twice has he been this excited about a company. And when I looked at the data they had, and then especially after I met Damien, the personality obviously came across, and the whole persona and the thrive to win. And I saw the combination of the data they had and the leader they had. There was there's no doubt in my mind that we were going to excel. And so I'm building a data science team, and we're powering image detection. So anytime there's a logo in an image, and that's something that relates to what Damien said. We wrote it from scratch. We have our own algorithms that for doing those things. And then there's also the component of having to be fast at it. So we turned around an algorithm in 3 months for logo detection, and some companies have been doing it for years, and we got to that same point in 3 months. And then there's detection of fire, detection of which are very different from logos because those are a lot more fixed and they just rotate and bend. But I mean, a fire can have just smoke or just flames or both, or a fire truck outside a destroyed building with no more fire, no longer a fire. The intensity of the fire. Yeah, exactly. So the heterogeneity of the types of images you get from fire is incredibly large. So there's a completely different problem. And then there's a lot of side projects like, can we predict the popularity of an event right when it starts based on location, topic, interests, and things like that? Can we predict or detect when some type of event is coming out of location but it doesn't belong there? So a picture of a fire, like a picture of 9/11, right, coming out of somewhere in the middle of the desert, that's a picture of a fire, correct? But that we could say, well, that doesn't belong, right? There's no way there's this building in this location in the world, so we can ignore that. We shouldn't alert anybody about World Trade Center burning down in the middle of the Middle East right now. So it's just a data scientist's dream, basically. The data we have there is just, it's a playground every day.
Good marketing.
No, I'm just amazed at the quantities of data that you're dealing with every day. So you focus on one project per se, or now it's
no.
How do you that information?
Pedro's probably got I mean, literally a dozen major projects going on in data science, but it'd be unfair just to characterize the whole company in data science. I mean, we've got a lot of men and women there in engineering and all facets of engineering, as well as non-engineering in the events in our live media team that make this a reality every day, and that are working on literally dozens of projects. I mean, we are literally, think about that, we're listening to the entire world. If something happens somewhere in the world, I mean, we're listening. And that's why I told you, if you come to the Vegas Media Center and you look, it's just, imagine seeing just a dark room with all these large screens everywhere, and you're just calling out, you know, go to the country of Turkey, zoom in Istanbul, zoom in into this neighborhood, rewind time 30 minutes, look for someone drinking a can of Coke, boom, done, that fast. That kind of power is, well, it's quite amazing, and there's a lot you can do with it, and that's why we work with media, and that's why we work with large brands like at the Super Bowl, and that's why we're working with, you know, financial institutions for understanding stock markets and things that move the stock markets, etc.
Just to chime in on what you said about the other teams, I think so many companies have these dreams of data science, and they hire a bunch of data scientists, and they think they have the data or the infrastructure for it, and then a year later they fire the whole team because they realize we didn't have what was necessary to hire the data scientists. The data scientists come in and they're like, well, there's not much I can do. And so it's because of those other teams having the infrastructure, having the data the right way, having the people that can help enrich the data set or curate. That whole infrastructure allows the data scientists to actually use the data. Otherwise, it'd be just swimming in data and just basically drowning and not swimming.
So we're news people here, but I'm really interested in this idea, your can of Coke example, right? Like if I'm a Coca-Cola brand representative, that is a dream to me. Can you talk a little bit more about how you might work with a brand like Coke and what they want from you? If I can zoom into a neighborhood in Turkey and see somebody drinking my product.
Well, how about I can give you a real life example of what we just did at the Super Bowl with Bud Light. So Bud Light has this, if you guys have watched any television lately, Bud Light has this huge campaign called Up for Whatever or Whatever USA, and in Super Bowl they powered the House of Whatever, which was the big party, if you will, at the Super Bowl. And that was all powered by, well, I shouldn't say all, that would be an unfair characterization, but it was certainly, a lot of that was powered by Banjo. And how that was is, imagine for a brand, they want to know what's happening at an event. Right? And so today, the social tools that are available are just, look by a hashtag, look by keywords, and then they got to sort through a massive amount of data. But they need this in real time to be used in advertising, or whether it's on television, whether it's on those giant billboards and stadiums. And so it's just not feasible. And if it is, it takes a tremendous amount of people. You don't see that, but working in a room, just all these people, and the expense is quite high. The difference with Banjo is forget hashtags, forget keywords. It's about saying on this street corner, or under this tent, or in this party, anybody who's posting publicly with social media, right? Taking that content and then enhancing it by saying, well, we only want stuff to show up on television or on the ESPN.com website or on the stadium screen that they have a Bud Light hat on, or they're holding a Bud Light or a Bud Light brand like Lime Rita or something like that. And Banjo, that's in real time. Like I'm talking about the second you share that photo, we know you're holding a can of Bud Light. We know you're wearing a Bud Light shirt. We know there's a Bud Light neon sign 100 feet behind you. And so that kind of implicit advertising is unknown to all brands today. Like this doesn't exist, especially in real time. And so we're literally able to look at any place. I mean, we could look at the entire United States right now and say, who's sharing any kind of social media on any social network that in the background has something to do with Bud Light. And
it sounds like it's hinging on the image, right? Like you don't even have to wait. You don't have to wait till somebody names it, right? Like you don't have to wait till somebody writes down Bud Light or even has it on their mind. It's just this.
It's 100%. No, it's 100% image recognition.
Very cool.
Liv, can I just ask one question? So. A lot of people must ask you about the privacy implications of this, especially because consumers, maybe if I use a social network, I'm thinking, I'm sharing this with my Facebook friends or my Twitter.
Yep.
But you guys are collecting all of that and using it for something?
It's not true.
No?
So again, like I said, I think you'd be hard pressed to find any other company that uses social data in the world that has filed for a patent to protect a consumer's privacy like we have. I mean, we're that sophisticated in protecting privacy, and that's why even our government has had me go speak on privacy, because I'm such an advocate of it. In fact, even at South by Southwest this year, it'll be, I think, the second or third year in a row, I'm speaking on consumer privacy and data. When consumers share on social networks today, if they're sharing on Facebook or something like that amongst their friends, it's absolutely not, number one, not collected by Banjo, but number two, not shown by Banjo. If you can go to Twitter today and you can look up, for example, like my handle, because you know who I am and I'm posting with Geo right now, and I'm posting publicly, hey, I'm here at Stanford and I'm talking to these great people right now. That's for anybody in the world. You know, people retweet it, people like my stuff or favorite my stuff. I don't know who these people are, but I've said to the world, I'm broadcasting. Banjo is only listening for the people that are broadcasting, right? And so anybody who is just having these conversations, like you said, with their friends, and with the implication that it's private, there's no way that we're, number one, not collecting that data, but number two, not showing that information.
Okay, did you guys, yeah.
Going back to how you answered Katie's question like a couple seconds ago, how involved are you with companies, clients that might be using Banjo, which is just like, here's what we have, you sort through this and use it how you will, or do you consult at all, like, okay, like Bud Light, say they want to use it for advertising, but maybe you could suggest, oh, why don't you use it for research? See during the Super Bowl how many people have Coors Light shirts on compared to Bud Light. Maybe you can use that as an opportunity. That's a good market for you. Like, do you ever like work one-on-one with certain people that use Banjo?
We do. I can't give so Banjo is if you look up Banjo today, you're going to see that it's only about the consumer product, right? Everything we're talking to you guys about here and educating everyone here on Banjo was done at the request of Ann Grimes, and to come share this with you today, but it's not public what we're doing. You know, we've been very choosy about who our customers are. We've been very choosy about whether it's the brands, whether it's financial markets, whether it's the news media, till today. That'll eventually change and will be out there, but for today, Banjo can do so many things, and that's what, if you go back to they asked what was hard, and I said forging a new path every single day, every hour of every day. We're doing something that's never been done before, and that's just crazy to think about. The power of that, even we don't know. It's like the human brain. Think about how we use just this much of the human brain, right? That's about how much we're using of the power of Banjo right now, and we know that. The difference with the human brain is we haven't figured out how to unlock it. Well, we're figuring out how to unlock Banjo every single day. And one of the greatest ways that we're figuring out that is we get really smart people like yourself that come in that you know a genre of something in life that we just don't know. We're not experts in maybe the financial markets or brands or journalism or whatever the case may be. And you come in and say, what if? And we get that all the time. What if? And then we go to Banjo and we say, what if? And then it tells us, and that's kind of the remarkable thing, like you said, with the data. If the information is there to get the answers, but it's the people that we've surrounded ourselves with that help us figure out what those answers should be, or questions should be, to get the right answers, if you will.
Jay, did you have a question?
Yeah, just going back to the idea of broadcasting on social media. I was curious. First off, which channels of social media you both find are the most popular and most effective when working with Banjo, and also if you monitor how people use social media. I ask because like Instagram has blown up in popularity, but even things like Snapchat, which are as broadcast based, and people are becoming more aware of the geolocated nature of social media.
Sure. It really depends. It's quite interesting. We have this map that I call the traffic control of all social media. So it's literally a map of the world, and in real time, it's blinking. Every time there's a post made that we can detect that there's location on it from any social network. And so like the whole map is doing this all the time, and different countries are lighting it up, different parts of the world. And what you find is it's quite interesting that country by country, and not even country by country, but even within a country, completely different social networking use. So all the time you hear, it's a tweet, it's a tweet, it's a tweet. The reality of it is, no, it's not. And it could be Instagram, like you mentioned, or Snapchat. But in other countries like that use Foursquare way more than we would think, like, oh, really? People are using Foursquare that much? But in some countries, they certainly are. There's countries that still aren't really even using Twitter much at all. Certainly there are people there that are using Twitter, but not much at all compared to what we think of Twitter use. So it's really based not only on just the demographic of the age of the person, which has a lot to do with it, but also has a lot to do with cultural, a lot to do with language, lot to do with what type of devices are more readily available, whether, you know, are these people out using a Windows phone versus an Android phone. What kind of Android device? Is it a low-end device? Is it a high-end device? Do they have an iPhone? So through that, we see patterns. I can tell you, a couple months ago when they said that Instagram had passed Twitter, I mean, we look at our traffic every day, and we can definitely tell. It's not numbers we share publicly, but we tell where the trends are, and we know. I mean, we knew that 6 months, maybe even before that, it was publicly announced that was the case. And so because of that, we can focus on certain countries. It's like China. In China, we have a partnership with Weibo, and so people would think, okay, that's only important in China. Not true. Do you know how many people from China are visiting America every day that use Weibo, or how many Chinese nationals that now live in America are using Weibo to keep up with their friends and family back home? And so when you look at if you look at Disneyland today, or any kind of public event today, you're going to find Weibo posts. And I guarantee you, people in the United States, journalists in the United States, are not paying attention to that. And there's a lot of tremendous content. In fact, there's breaking news stories that we find here in the United States, breaking news, that is first shared by people using a foreign social network that is not monitored or not listened to by most media, if any media in the United States, like a Weibo in China or a VKontakte in Russia or something like these nature.
You mentioned some of the broadcast companies that you partner with. One could imagine that one of them might like to be first to have access to the data. So do you give it all at the same time, or is there any differentiation?
There's no differentiator. I mean, again, we don't believe in exclusives. I never say never, because never's forever, right? So you can't ever say never. But again, just like in all the other conversations we've had today about certain things, we believe in fair play. And so, if one partner is paying for Banjo, another partner is paying for Banjo, they should have the same access. Now, they internally may not be set up to ingest information that fast and then act on it. Just because we give you a signal, I could give everybody in here a signal and say, hey, you guys know this first. Each and every one of you is going to have a different way of telling people. Some might go out social media, some may pick up a phone, some may run out there and start screaming in the quad. I mean, who knows? But it's going to come at different intervals, right? Even seconds, some minutes. And we see that even with our media partners. Some can get news out right away, some can't, right? They're just not set up that way to do that.
You mentioned investigative reporting. Are you mining the data over a longer period to help with investigative projects, or is that still something to come?
No, I mean, so if you think about investigative reporting, we have, I'll just think of this one customer in particular, a major sports media organization, and when they're doing their investigative reporting, they're able to go to a location that something may have happened at months ago, many months ago, but that exact location, this exact room, for example, who was there, who saw this, who are those people, and then, like I said, they're able to reach out. Remember, the number one thing that Banjo is used for in the media is not going on television, although we're on television, I don't know how many times a day, a ridiculous amount of times a day now, but it's really about contacting sources at the scene. So there's a lot of stuff that's sourced on Banjo that's just never used. But think about all the resources from a journalist that wasn't wasted. Trucks weren't rolled out, helicopters weren't flown, or people didn't chase a story, and they could go and focus on other things that were important. And so investigative reporting is the exact same thing. It's about, the difference with investigative is breaking news is today, right? It's the new now next, if you will, right now, where investigative reporting is sometime in the past. But the past is just like the present to Banjo. It's instantaneous, it's there, and that information.
Just along the lines of you don't have any exclusives. So how did you, I think that at one point maybe this was, I don't know if it was the bombing or the crash. It was the crash. You said you alerted NBC. So did you also? We
alerted a lot of other partners. Again, there were, Yahoo News got that up first.
You told them all at the same time?
I always hate to say in absolutes because I may not have been that individual who did it. I can tell you today, if you're in the Banjo Media Center in Las Vegas, which is, it's a 24/7 business, so it's pretty fascinating to just be in there and watch. I mean, we go there at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's happening. When something happens on a national level like that, everybody is alerted at the same time. But we then watch the stories go live on TV, or they use it on web, or they use it on mobile at very different intervals.
So on a related question, a lot of the customers that you've cited are the big broadcast kind of customers.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any print newspapers who buy your product? Like, traditional kind of, journalists from...
I would say, we we don't proactively go after anybody, and so because we're not in the public eye, certainly there's been some print journalism that's come to us, and there's some print journalism we're actually working with now, but the answer is, by and large, I would say most, I don't want to call them smaller players, because in some cases print journalism is very large, but right now the medium that people see Banjo at, because we're not very public about what we do, is because they see Banjo on TV. And someone who's watching, something like on NBC sees, someone from ABC, they're always watching their competition. And so that's how they learn about Banjo right now. So Banjo is very much a word of mouth amongst the journalists today, and not a proactive, we do not have, for example, an active force that's gone out after any media, actually.
And beyond the consumer app, it actually would cost money for a journalist to be able to...
Yeah, oh yeah, we charge, of course, that's how we make money today.
You have to make money.
Yeah.
So, that's just one
well, maybe not. Silicon Valley making money, you just go to venture capitalists. That's how we make money. But, we actually are creating real business here, and so yes, we actually do make money.
So if I'm a journalist working for a newspaper and some big event happens, and I want to reach people on the scene and just 4 hours away, I'm still going to have to go get in my car and drive my 4 hours home because I am not able to pay for the Banjo, right?
Right.
I'm not trying to play devil. I get where you're coming from. You're building your business.
Yep.
I was just wondering if there's a...
there are certainly people that, just like when electricity came out, there certainly were people that not everybody could afford electricity, or not everybody could even harness electricity, use it for something. And that's the same thing with Banjo. It's such a new form factor. We're still figuring it out ourselves. What can it be used for or whatever? But certainly we know we can't be all things to all people, and we appreciate that. But at the end of the day, we feel we're building a game-changing, not just a business, but I've already watched how it's changed media practices. I've watched how it's changed brand practices. And these are massive organizations, global organizations, and we're not just changing a small thing where someone's just putting a story. We're changing their entire operational structure of how they look at things. There's one large broadcast company I can tell you that does not launch helicopters anymore without going and checking Banjo first to verify the cost.
So here's a what if for you.
Okay, I like what ifs.
So have you considered for major issues, like a major event happening, you putting a timeline out there on Banjo that's public for other journalists to be able to use?
So we have that.
Call it for the public good?
Well, we have that today. If you go to the Banjo website, ban.jo, you're going to find under the news sections major stories that we're giving you could use right now to source the scene, and we know that they do.
Real time, like what
yes, in real time. And so I can tell you right now, there have been conferences like there's an IRE conference, which is Investigative Reporters Conference. A lot of the people at IRE or at other kind of conferences like that are using the consumer product of Banjo because they can go to those news stories, or on Banjo you can actually, there's a location icon and you can go to any location you want and you can get sources at the scene. It's not the volume of content that the customers who are paying for, but it is real time. It's as fast as you can get on it.
This may be a privacy niche question, but I'm curious if you could speak to potential lack of education in particularly many young social media users for what they're geotagging and what they're not. I know when I first joined Twitter, I was automatically geotagging stuff and didn't even realize it because I just hadn't. I just wasn't familiar with it. So I'm wondering if you could speak to whether or not you've run into any issues with that, or people if you just talk to a user's own prerogative to opt into being geotagged and what that means for privacy for those who aren't as educated as to how social media works. I
would find it pretty hard to believe, given how you use Twitter on a mobile device. We're talking mobile now. We're not talking web. We focus on getting geo from mobile because it's much more accurate than someone from their desktop. You have to push the location thing, like on Instagram, you have to choose a location, right? It just doesn't say you're at such and such location, right? So you are opting in that. Now, do people just get in the habit of that and they use it all the time? Yeah, but it's a conscious decision. I'm trying to recall, Banjo, certainly we haven't run into any issues with that. I get the question a lot, for sure. But when you realize the amount of what we're talking about events, okay? We're not talking about going to your home and listening to what you're talking about on social media from your house. Because the reality is most people aren't using location for their house. They're not. Do some people? Sure. And that's their choice. They're deciding to do that. But what we found is, like, even take a Super Bowl, for example. The amount of people that went there and posted, and we're talking about, take the female user, because they're the ones that I see protect their privacy more often than the male counterpart, right? Again, it all has to do with age, demographics, and everything, so all things being equal. But at the Super Bowl, you started seeing a lot of women whose accounts were private. Why? Because you don't see their content sharing, and their accounts might be private. But during the Super Bowl, they wanted everybody to know they're at the Super Bowl. Right? So it's geotagged and it's public. But then the post when they leave there, I mean, I'm assuming because there's no post, you don't see that. And so what you find is in breaking news situations, people want to share with the world, right? Because they want, I mean, people, you know, we want that our ego stroked or whatever it is to be validated that says, oh, wow, you found that first, that's amazing. And people retweeting you, like, we want to get more likes, or we want to get more favorites, or more people hearting us on Instagram, whatever the case may be. But the majority of people, and I can't speak for everybody, but I firmly believe the majority of people are making that as a conscious decision, because you have to consciously select those things. And I'm sure all of you use social media, you know that. It's not, you know, Twitter's not just flippantly sending out your location now. You have to select the little arrow, or in Instagram, you've got to pick a place. It just doesn't say, it doesn't just share your location. I know, because half the time I post something and the team says, oh, I thought you were going to post from this concert or this thing. And I'm like, I did. And I'm like, oh, I forgot to put geo on. So, you know, and, but that being said, I mean, the critical mass of the number of people sharing location in the world is here. I mean, there's rarely, I think if ever, there's any kind of what I call major event. And a major event to me is even a major car accident on the 101 blocking it, that there's not people sharing with geo. Of course, it may be the minority in some situations, but that minority is still critical mass in order for you to get the story. It's still a source at the scene that you can validate information.
We have time for one more question. And
this is sort of, you alluded to this earlier. I wonder if you could just retell the Boston Marathon photo story that you shared with me earlier, how that sort of popped up and you guys saw the kid looking the other way. Because I think that's for news people, that's a really interesting.
Yeah, so so the Boston story, to me, it's like so many, I used to tell that story a lot because that was what changed the company, and it was my frame of reference. Now my frame of reference changes like so many times a day now, especially with big stories, whether it's a Malaysian Airlines or even, you know, even larger stories than that. But so the Boston story, again, we heard there was an explosion, and on Banjo, it's, again, we have the world mapped. So imagine looking at your favorite mapping, whether it's Google Maps or Bing or whatever, and being able to just, you know, type in an address and zoom in any location. It's no different on Banjo. Except when you do it on Banjo, it's going to show you all the publicly available social photos, videos, text, whatever the case may be for that moment in time. And so what we were able to do is we were able to rewind time instantaneously. Just like if you're watching something on you know, Netflix or YouTube and you have that scrubber on the bottom, you just scrub back time, just that fast. Whoop! And all of a sudden, the whole landscape changes because it's what was it like at that moment in time. And that's what we were able to do. And we were able to find a person of what I considered interest, because you can tell the individual was doing something that probably shouldn't have been doing, if you will, at that. And what she's alluding to is the individual was looking at a completely different direction than everybody else, and was at the exact location of certain things. And so we were able to pull that and extract that photograph out of there literally minutes after the explosion happened. And that's the power of being able to go back in time, even recent time, 30 minutes ago time.
And that was an unrelated, like, this photo was not, the person didn't take the photo knowing what is that person doing. This was,
of course, no, sorry. They were in the background of someone's photo, and it was a picture of the older brother. So, what do you mean what happened next?
What did you do with the photo?
I sent the photo to the authorities. So, there you have it.
Could you talk more then about goes back to the question I was asking earlier about your relationship with government. Tell me what prompted you to send it to the authorities? Under what circumstances would you not send it?
Well, I mean, it's publicly available. You could have sent it. I mean, it was available for everybody to see. It was on. Everybody in the world was going to see that photo. We just found it before everybody else, but everybody ended up seeing 1 million of those photographs of them eventually. It just took another 30 minutes or an hour or 2 hours. We just found it first.
Right, tell me about the decision to alert the government.
What do you mean the decision? There was.
Under what conditions would you share with the government or alert the government to something you discovered? Under what circumstances would you not?
I mean, for me, it's pretty cut and dry. I mean, if there's something that's going to harm, harm people's lives, especially here in our country, and I think that we can help give something to anybody that's public information, we're going to do that. But there's a big line between public information and private information, and this was public information everyone was going to see. They probably found the photo on their own, doing their things, but it was clear to me that people's lives were going to be impacted negatively because of this, and I felt the responsibility.
I'm not questioning the judgment, but are there people?
I'm not saying you are questioning, but even if you were questioning, it's this decision. I mean, that decision squarely fell on my shoulders and no one else's in the company or that's associated with the company. I just felt I had an obligation to help the people that whose lives could be negatively impacted by the situation.
Is there a team of people at Banjo who pay attention to those kinds of things?
There is not. I mean, sure. I mean, again, remember we're a startup, and there's so much that we can do with this thing, like as a power source, that I would love there to be 100 teams doing 100 different things at Banjo every day. We can't necessarily afford that today. Hopefully someday we can. I do choose, and again, that comes down to me. I do choose things that I decide to do. Like right now, I'm working on a social good project. That's what I call it. It's about helping improve notification for people's lives in dangerous situations, such as weather anomalies that they don't know about yet, because in today's emergency broadcast system is not kept up with the times, if you will. Like, that's a personal decision that I've made. No one's asked me to go do that. It's just something that I believe that we can do with our technology. So I've just decided that's something we should go do. You could probably give me 100 other things our company should do with our technology or could do, but then we have to decide, can we afford those, and is it a distraction for us? And in most cases, I call them a distraction for us, even though they're a great use case. Could be a great use case. But we can't afford to be distracted. We get distracted, and startups get distracted all the time, and they're gone. That's why the majority of startups that you heard about last year, you don't even hear about anymore. They got distracted. And it's my job to keep the train on the tracks and us focused on, what really matters, and that's, perfecting the technology and finding the use cases today that are the most prevalent that we can get out there to have success. And then through that success, we'll be able to go horizontal, if you will.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having us.